What if you woke up tomorrow and the US dollar was no longer the world's financial king? What if your iPhone cost twice as much? Your local Walmart shelf sat empty, and global trade danced to Beijing's tune. This isn't a dystopian novel, it's the very real possibility of China overtaking the United States as the world's economic superpower. By 2030, the International Monetary Fund projects China's economy could swell to $36 trillion, eclipsing the US at $30 trillion. When that day comes, the shockwaves will ripple through your wallet, your job, and America's influence on the global stage. This isn't about fear-mongering, it's about facing a future that's closer than you think. In this deep dive, you'll uncover the seismic shifts that could reshape your life and what America can do to fight back. Let's cut through the noise and get to the stakes. The shockwave. When China takes the economic crown, picture the moment China's GDP surpasses America's. It's not just a headline, it's a global earthquake that redefines power. The shift hands China the ability to dictate trade rules, control supply chains, and sway financial markets. Your daily life will feel the tremors. That morning coffee? Its price spikes as Chinese tariffs hit American imports. The car you drive? Its parts, sourced from Chinese-dominated supply chains, suddenly cost more. Your job in manufacturing or tech? At risk as companies pivot to appease Beijing's demands. This isn't speculation. China's economic ascent is already reshaping global markets. In 2024, China accounted for 18% of global GDP, trailing the US by just 6%. The gap is narrowing fast, fueled by China's relentless investment in infrastructure, technology, and trade networks. When China takes the crown, it won't just be a symbolic loss, it will redraw the rules of the global economy, with America playing catch-up. The psychological blow will hit hard, too. For decades, Americans have taken pride in leading the world's economy. Losing that mantle could spark a crisis of confidence, dampening investment and innovation at home. History offers a glimpse when Britain ceded economic dominance to the US. In the early 20th century, its global influence waned for decades. China's victory would signal a similar turning point, with Beijing setting the agenda on everything from climate policy to human rights. The stakes are clear. This isn't just about numbers, it's about who shapes the future. The dollar's fall, a new global currency on the horizon. The US dollar has been the backbone of global trade since World War II, but China's rise threatens to dethrone it. If the Chinese yuan becomes the world's reserve currency, the fallout will be brutal. In 2024, 22% of global trade was settled in yuan, a tenfold increase from a decade ago, according to the Bank for International Settlements. Central banks, from Saudi Arabia to Brazil, are already diversifying away from dollars. If this trend accelerates, the dollar's value could plummet. Your savings would shrink overnight. Gas prices would soar as oil trades in yuan, forcing you to pay more at the pump. Even your mortgage could take a hit as interest rates spike to stabilize markets. A weaker dollar isn't just a financial headache, it's a national security risk. The U.S. funds its $6 trillion federal budget, partly because the dollar's dominance keeps borrowing costs low. If that trust erodes, America's ability to project power from military bases to foreign aid weakens. Look at Venezuela's bolivar. Once stable, it collapsed when global confidence vanished, plunging millions into poverty. The U.S. isn't Venezuela, but the lesson holds: lose your currency's edge, and chaos follows. China knows this. Its push for yuan-based trade, through initiatives like the digital yuan and BRICS partnerships, is a calculated move to chip away at the dollar's throne. If China succeeds, the American dream could become a lot harder to afford. Takeover, China's innovation surge. Silicon Valley has long been the world's tech mecca, but China is closing in fast. Beijing is pouring $1.4 trillion into AI, 5G, quantum computing, and semiconductors through 2030, outspending the US by a 2-to-1 margin, according to a 2024 report from the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Chinese firms like Huawei, ByteDance, and DJI already dominate global markets. In 2023, China filed 50% more AI patents than the US, signaling a shift in innovation leadership. If this trend holds, American tech giants like Apple, Google, and Microsoft could lose their edge, costing jobs and market share. The consequences hit close to home. Imagine your smart home running on Chinese software, with Beijing's algorithms quietly monitoring your data. Your next car might rely on Chinese-made chips, vulnerable to supply chain disruptions or even sabotage. National security is at stake. China's lead in 5G could give it an edge in cyber warfare, as Huawei's infrastructure already powers networks in 170 countries. Reports from MIT and Stanford warn that without massive investment, the US, this isn't just about who makes the best smartphone. It's about who controls the digital future. If China wins, America's innovation engine could stall, leaving workers and consumers scrambling. Trade wars to trade rules, China's global playbook. When China becomes the world's economic leader, it won't just play by the rules, it will write them. The Belt and Road Initiative, spanning 140 countries, already ties much of the world to China's economic orbit, with $1 trillion in investment since 2013. If the US loses its trade leverage, China could impose standards that favor its firms, sidelining American exporters. The 2018 trade war offers a preview. China's retaliatory tariffs on American soybeans crushed farmers, costing $27 billion in exports. A Chinese-led trade system could make such losses permanent. This shift would hit American consumers hard. Your favorite brands might vanish as Chinese competitors flood markets with cheaper alternatives. Small businesses, already struggling, could fold under the weight of new trade barriers. The World Trade Organization, once a US-backed arbiter, might bend to China's influence, leaving America with less clout to fight back. The message is clear. In a world where China sets the trade agenda, American prosperity takes a backseat. Jobs and wages, the American workers fight for survival. China's economic dominance would hit American workers where it hurts most, their paychecks. In 2023, China produced 50% of the world's steel, 60% of its electronics, and 70% of its solar panels, according to the World Bank. If China consolidates this lead, it could flood the US with cheap goods, gutting industries like automotive, aerospace, and manufacturing. The Bureau of Labor Statistics estimates that trade imbalances with China have already cost 2.4 million US jobs since 2001. A Chinese-led economy would amplify this, driving layoffs and stagnant wages. Picture a Detroit factory worker laid off as plants move to Guangzhou, or a Seattle coder competing with Chinese tech firms offering lower salaries. Even white-collar jobs aren't safe. China's push into AI and automation could outsource tasks like data analysis or engineering. The ripple effects would hit communities hard, with declining tax revenues straining schools and infrastructure. The American middle class, already squeezed, could face a future of shrinking opportunities. This isn't just economics, it's a threat to the social fabric of the nation. Geopolitical power, China's New World Order, economic strength fuels political muscle, and a richer China would reshape global alliances. The US has long relied on its economic clout to lead NATO, broker peace deals, and counter adversaries. But a dominant China could flip the script. Its $700 billion defense budget, projected for 2035, would fund a navy rivaling America's, patrolling critical trade routes like the South China Sea. From Africa to Latin America, China's investments are already pulling countries into its orbit, with $400 billion in loans to developing nations since 2010. This shift could marginalize U.S. influence. Imagine a world where the United Nations defers to Beijing on human rights or climate policy, or where allies like Japan and South Korea hedge their bets, wary of America's weakened hand. Historical parallels are sobering. When Britain lost economic dominance to the U.S., its global empire crumbled. If China takes the lead, America's ability to shape world events, from countering Russia to addressing global warming, could fade, leaving it a secondary player in a Beijing-led order. The debt trap. America's economic Achilles heel. The U.S. owes China $1.1 trillion in treasury bonds, a debt that could become a weapon. If China's economy surpasses America's, it could sell off these bonds, crashing U.S. markets, or demand repayment in yuan, straining federal budgets. A 2024 analysis by economist Nouriel Roubini warns that such a move could trigger a financial crisis rivaling 2008. Greece's 2010 debt collapse offers a cautionary tale. When creditors lost faith, austerity gutted the economy. The U.S. isn't Greece, but the principle applies: debt gives China leverage. This vulnerability hits every American. A market crash would wipe out 401ks and pensions. Higher interest rates, needed to stabilize the dollar, would make homeownership a pipe dream for millions. The federal government, strapped for cash, might slash Social Security or Medicare to cover deficits. China's leaders know this and are already diversifying their reserves, reducing reliance on U.S. debt. If they pull the trigger, America's economic resilience could crumble, leaving taxpayers to foot the bill. The consumer crunch, higher prices, fewer choices, China's economic victory would hit American consumers where it hurts, their wallets. Beijing controls 80% of the world's rare earth minerals, critical for everything from smartphones to electric vehicles, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. If China tightens this grip, prices for everyday goods could soar. Picture paying $1,000 for a basic laptop or waiting months for a new car battery. Supply chain disruptions, like those during the 2021 chip shortage, would become the norm, with empty shelves and long lines at stores. Choices would shrink too. Chinese brands like Xiaomi or BYD could dominate markets, pushing out American competitors. Quality might suffer as cost-cutting takes priority. Even healthcare could take a hit. China produces 40% of the world's active pharmaceutical ingredients. If Beijing prioritizes its own citizens, Americans could face drug shortages. This isn't just about convenience, it's about affordability and access in a world where China holds the cards. Can America fight back? The future isn't set in stone. The U.S. has the tools to counter China's rise, but it must act decisively. Investing $2 trillion in infrastructure, roads, ports, and broadband would boost productivity and create jobs. The CHIPS Act, which funneled $50 billion into U.S. semiconductor production, shows what's possible. By 2024, it had created 115,000 jobs and reduced reliance on Chinese chips. Doubling down on STEM education, with 1 million new graduates by 2030, could fuel innovation. Trade alliances, like the Trans-Pacific Partnership, if revived, would counter China's Belt and Road. Government and industry must align. Tax incentives for green tech could challenge China's solar and battery dominance. Public-private partnerships like those behind SpaceX could drive breakthroughs in AI and quantum computing. Voters have a role, too, demanding policies that prioritize economic resilience over short-term gain. The U.S. has overcome challenges before, from the Soviet space race to the 2008 financial crisis. With bold action, it can stay in the game. The future is now. What you can do. China's economic rise isn't a distant threat, it's happening today. In 2024, China's exports grew 7%, outpacing the U.S. by 3%. Every day, its influence deepens, from the clothes you wear to the tech you use. But you're not powerless. Support local businesses to keep jobs at home. Demand trade policies that level the playing field right to your senator. Join the conversation online. Stay informed. Follow outlets like the Wall Street Journal or Bloomberg for unfiltered insights. Most importantly, vote for leaders who prioritize America's economic strength. This fight is personal. It's about your job, your savings, your kids' future. Will you let China shape the world you live in? Or will you push for an America that stands tall? The clock is ticking. China's not waiting, and neither should you. Let's end with a challenge. Take one action today, whether it's reading up on trade policy or supporting a local manufacturer. The future starts with you.